Alright, Bismillah, folks, Bismillah. Let's see how this works out today. Ya salam. Let me try to share this first of all. See how this is going. Alright, people, as you're logging on, I hope, bi'idhnillah, that today there is some clarity with this. If there isn't, I'm just going to roll with it anyway, as much as I can. Right, so I'm just going to share it. One moment. Un momento, por favor. Un momento. Let me see. Sajid, Sahib, Ahlan wa Sahlan. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa. Wa ala ibadi alladhina irtada. Wa man bihudahum ihtada. Wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa. Wa ba'd. Fasalamu Allahi ala al-qawm. Ahlan wa Sahlan. And apologies for not being able to join you guys yesterday. Shukran, Lobon, shukran. Yesterday, I don't know. I think my system got possessed. I had to delete my entire app. I deleted my entire app, reset the entire router. I deleted enough stuff from my iPad. Just tried to... I thought, what on earth is going on here? But, lillahi alhamd. Orale. Let's get moving, people. Let's get moving. Right, so, Aina nahnu, where are we? Well, it's been an interesting fortnight. A lot's been happening around the world. I mean, yesterday was Pakistan Independence Day, so we had the Pakistan Zindabad, those of you, and today, Independence Day for India, so for all the folks celebrating that, Jai Hind out there. I think it is a shame, really, this whole, the kind of, somebody just said the quality is ridiculously good. What do you expect, goddammit? I'm delivering this. Anna. Why would you expect any less from me, people? That's the thing, I'm here to deliver this in HD. Right? لِخِدِمَاتِكُمْ. This is for a service to you people. Right, so coming back to this independence thing, I think it's a shame that there's so much, that there's so much this kind of split between Pakistan and India, all this animosity. I think India is a beautiful country, and I think if there wasn't these issues, I would love to visit India. I'm studying Hindi, by the way, so I study Hindi. So, right, Shuddh Hindi. So for all of you out there, some of my Hindi books, they're not here, they're downstairs now, I take it. But, yep. So hum seekh rahe hain, but we're with the actual Devanagari, with the actual Hindi script. I find it amazing, and I find Hindi words as well awesome. But you know, it's a shame to see how politicized things have become. Alaikum salam, Robin, Kay, Ahlan wa Sahlan. It's a shame to see how politicized things have become, that you can't even, like, when people use certain words, it's seen as no, only Indians should use those words, only Pakistanis should use those words. Yaar, ye, as Ghalib said, he said that why are you trying to impose religion on Urdu? Right, so Humais, Ahlan wa Sahlan, Saima, Ahlan wa Sahlan. The thing is that, look, religion has got nothing to do with language. You know, it's like when somebody, they tried at one point, Ghalib, there was some kind of an celebration, and Ghalib was given some, you know, mithai to eat. So he's eating some, I don't know whether it was, whatever it was, so he had some mithai, and somebody said to him, they said to him, Ghalib Sahib, ye mat khaiye, don't eat that, this is from the Hindus. Right? Right, so the thing is that, I just missed that. Right, right, so the thing is, and he said, they said to him, don't eat this kind of, you know, these sweets, whatever, they're from Hindus. And he said, yaar, he said, yeah, barfi Hindu hai ya Muslim? Like this kind of, this sweet dish that I'm eating, is this a Hindu or a Muslim? You know, jahan mauka mile, you guys bas thok dete ho deen ko. You know, you just want to slam religion onto everything. That just take a break, for God's sake. But yeah, anyway, so that's, I do wish that politics would calm down and people would learn to kind of really live with each other. A bit more coexistence. It would be awesome. Would be awesome, yeah. There's a stand-up comedian, parental advisory. I mean, if something doesn't come with an advisory warning, I mean, is it even worth it? The best things in life are always warned against. That's how you measure the greatness of something. How many people are warning against this thing? So there's a stand-up comedian, Kunal, an Indian guy, awesome guy. I totally love some of it. I wish he would do more, actually. And Kunal Kamra, I think his name is. And it's in English and Hindi as well, mixed, and he has these awesome. Anyway, but he has one speaking about these politics. Siachin pe hamare jawan mar rahe hain, Siachin pe. You gotta check it out to appreciate it. Anyway, let's move on with some of these questions. Right, now, can Muslim women marry non-Muslim men? Remember that article? Right, this is a Q&A, Abul Hassan. Naam, it's a Q&A, god damn it. But it's my Q&A, so it goes by my rules. Okay? If I want to talk, I'll talk, god damn it. How dare you criticize me on my Q&A? So, the thing, right, okay, Robin, yeah, shukran for unnecessarily getting me slated. So, Robin shares an article on Facebook, which I do not know about this article. I've not read this article. I've not endorsed this article. And it said something about Muslim women marrying non-Muslim men. And she tagged me into it. And I suppose maybe, to be fair, she didn't say, I think she said, oh, this can be the discussion for the coming Q&A. So people reading this must have assumed that, oh, Mufti is endorsing this. Right, so they just start slating me. So I'm getting a free beatdown, a virtual beatdown on what is it? Oh, Abul Hassan, I was only joking, don't worry about it. So I was getting this virtual beatdown on Facebook, and I've not said anything, I've not endorsed the article, I've not even heard of this article, and so this is all going on. Anyway, so this question, can Muslim women marry non-Muslim men? Right, and what is the whole situation about this? Right, so just to clarify, now look, I have answered this before. Yeah, I'm taking them from last night's post, but you can post your questions here. If I catch them, Zafar, I will try to answer them. I'll try and mix and match some of the things. Now, look, in my understanding, marriage, right, just works as a human thing. So it's not that Islam never initiated marriage. In fact, the hadith, which is a sahih hadith, and I believe it's in Bukhari, it's from Aisha radiallahu anha, and she says that there were 4 different types of marriages taking place in the time of Jahiliyyah, the pre-Islamic era. And she says that, Islam condemned several of them. And she says, one nikah, and what was left is ma ta'arafa alayhi an-nas al-yawm. And that's interesting. It's an interesting choice of words. Ma ta'arafa alayhi an-nas al-yawm. She did not say it's what the Sharia legislated for us. She said it is what the people are practicing today. So it was kind of showing that Islam came and people already had an understanding of marriage. It ruled out understandings which contradicted with certain values and rights, and it sustained what people themselves had introduced as a concept of marriage on that particular day. So it's interesting because it shows, if you look at that hadith which is in Bukhari from Aisha, the interesting point is, where is the source of this nikah coming from? Is it coming from the Sharia or from the people? And it seems to be that it's coming from the people, and the Sharia is just saying no, 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 okay, this one you guys carry on with. Now, so in my understanding, that is what nikah was. It's what people came up with as a concept of relationships and marriages, and Islam ordained it. In essence, nikah ought to work between anybody. It ought to work. But then Islam kind of restricted it to being, well, it should be between Muslims. Now, then it kind of opens it up for Ahlul Kitab, for non-Muslims who happen to be closer to Muslims. And this was interesting because this was an era when Muslims were trying to mark out a particular identity for themselves. So you see the Prophet ﷺ, as he migrates into Medina and the Muslims migrate with him, they are trying to, because Muslims are in a very vulnerable state, so they're trying to sketch out an identity for themselves as Muslims. And the other is the mushrik, the polytheist, is seen as the other. So initially Muslims start to draw close bonds with non-Muslims who happen to share similar narratives, like Jews and Christians, because they're not mushriks, and the other is seen as the polytheist. So you start to see that the Prophet ﷺ highlights that, look, we are ummatun wahida, the Jews and the Christians and so on, and the Muslims start to fast when the Jews fast. Like the Prophet said, why don't we take Ashura as a fast, and why don't we take this, and a lot of Jewish and Christian things for the identity and solidarity are adopted. And in fact, there is another very interesting hadith, and I'm going to do a small clip on some of the new books I just purchased last week from Morocco. But one of them was the Ahkam al-Wusta by the famous muhaddith, the legend from Muslim Spain, Abdul Haq al-Ishbili. And he has these ahkam, these rulings of hadith to do with rulings. And he's got the large collection, al-Kubra, wal-Wusta, wal-Sughra. And I purchased the Wusta. And so in there he brings a hadith, which I believe, I'll double check, but I believe it may be from Sahih Muslim. But he brings a hadith in there where he says that the Prophet used to, kana yasdilu sha'rahu, that he would allow his hair, he would design or carry his hair in a style that would just drop back. وَكَانَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ يَسْتِلُونَ. And it says that وَكَانَ أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ يُفَرِّقُونَ شَعْرَهُم. That they would, or يَفْرِقُونَ شَعْرَهُم, that the Ahlul Kitab as an identity would part their hair. So he in this hadith it says that this is what the Ahlul Kitab would do, and the Prophet first and the Mushrikun would all generally just push back their hair. فَبَدَأَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ يَفْرِقُ شَعْرَهُ. So the Prophet began to part his hair, كما, as the Ahlul Kitab would do. But then he says in the Hadith that, oh, then, ثُمَّ, after time, after years, Sadl Rasulullah sha'rahu. The Prophet went back to pushing back his hair, because they had gone past the insecure stage where Muslims were insecure and trying to sketch out an identity. Now that they were secure, the Prophet resorted to his original style, which was what the Mushrikun used to do as well. And they would just, a normal hairstyle that they used to push back their hair, and certain people used to braid it. So it was interesting that there was a phase when the Prophet migrated to Medina, where the Muslims were trying to sketch out an identity, because many Muslims were at a stage of vulnerability, that they did certain things. And that included praying towards the Qibla of the Jews, which was Jerusalem. That included eating the meat of the Jews and the Christians. It included marrying into them. It included things like fasting when they would fast. It included even doing your hair like them. But once Muslims became secure, you start to see the Prophet saying, you know what, differentiate yourself from these people. We don't need to, because lest you fall into their mistakes. We have a secure identity now. And that's interesting. So you see the Prophet saying later on about the Majus, that look, do with them the way you do with Ahlul Kitab. Like you can take jizya from them, and some ulama said you can marry into them. And so this is interesting. Now, and that's where it kind of stops. Now, can you marry non-Muslims, non-Jews, or women do so? The general understanding is no. There have been some opinions, minority opinions in the past, held by some great companions, I believe. Amongst them, it has been, I believe, people like Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu and other people who believe that if a woman was married to a person who became a kafir, they could remain with them. And they disagree as in to what length can you remain with that non-Muslim. Some people say you can remain with them during the iddah, and that's a more accepted position. And some people said you can remain, that wife could remain with that husband indefinitely. And some people placed conditions, but there shouldn't be a sexual relationship. And some people said it didn't matter. Although these were then minority positions, and you have to recognize that Islam was kind of entering a new phase. It was soon to become a civilization. And obviously many things would become important, and one of those things would be marriage as well. So these views were no longer further kind of explored and appreciated, and really the world's kind of separated. So you started to have a whole empire where you had Muslims and then you had non-Muslims, and then nobody really followed up on these kind of things because there was no interest to do so. So that's the general. Although today you can resort to certain ulama like Sheikh Abdullah bin Bayya if you are stuck in these kind of issues, and they can advise accordingly. Okay, so that's some background to that. But the general understanding is that Muslim women do not marry non-Muslim men, and for Muslim men there was the allowance of Jews and Christians. That's how it is. Okay, let's move on to another question. Right, las preguntas. Where are we? Yesterday's questions. Let me just bring these up, people. Right, so whilst I'm doing that, is it obligatory to sacrifice an animal? Generally it isn't. No, it's sunnah. It's an emphasized sunnah, and the Hanafi madhab considers it wajib, but their wajib is a lesser obligation. It's not the same as a fard. Ghazala is following on from that question. Would it be haram if a Muslim woman married a non-Muslim? The general understanding is it would be haram. That's the general understanding, yes. Right, so let's go back. Somebody asked, am I Hanafi? Hell no, I'm not Hanafi. School of Medina all the way, people. School of Medina. So I trace my ilmi heritage going right back through the dons of this deen, right back to the enlightened city, the city of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Madinatul Munawwara, with the legends like Imam Malik, who took from their teachers, who took from their teachers, who took directly from the Messenger of Allah. That's my chain of transmission going right back through the dawn of Medina, Imam Malik. Although I respect the Hanafi madhab and all madhabs, but I'm not Hanafi, definitely not Hanafi. And I would advise that become Maliki. Become Maliki. Anyway, so let's take some. Right, there was a question about Fadak. Are we allowed to celebrate Milad? I've answered this before in several questions. You can check that up. You can watch my video on innovation. Mawlid is an innovation, but where do innovations stand within Islam? Is there such thing as good innovation? You can watch my video clip on it on YouTube. I've done this so many times before, so you can check that there, please. The Fadak issue. Right, okay. Fiqh. Somebody said, why you call madhab not fiqh? Fiqh, madhab, same kind of thing. Madhab is the school, fiqh is the understanding. It's cool. It's cool. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all love. Right, now, this Fadak, right, okay, what is Fadak? Fadak is a contentious, look at the words, contentious issue. I do that just to wind up some people, that's all. Right, some friends, that's all. Right, so it's a contentious issue between the orthodoxy of Islam and the Shia, okay, a sect within Islam. Now, Fadak is the name of a land that was taken in that belonged to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, that land was called Fadak. It is a particular village or a particular region. A small region sounds like large, but it was a particular piece of land that was a part of Khaybar, okay, the Jewish settlement outside of Medina. And when Khaybar and the whole issues happened and the conflict and then, as you're aware of it, the whole kind of the battle and the clash. But anyway, following Khaybar, there was certain distribution of land, and this piece of land called Fadak was what came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, after the Prophet had passed away, Fatima radiallahu anha approaches Abu Bakr and asks for Fadak, that it should be hers. And Abu Bakr says that, well, the Prophet said that nahnu ma'shar al-anbiya, that we prophets and messengers, la nuwarrithu dirhaman wa la dinara, we do not leave any inheritance, as in wealth inheritance. Innama nuwarrithu al-ilm, our inheritance, and we only bequeath knowledge. So he said that this is what the Prophet said. So I cannot give you Fadak. Now, then what happens after that? The narrative is viewed differently by people. The Sunni Orthodox Islam position is that Fatima, although may have been, I suppose, emotionally a bit upset, but she generally accepted that. Fatima goes off, and Fatima herself does not live much longer after the Prophet has passed away. She only lives for about 6 months after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and radiyallahu anha. Now, during that time, she doesn't generally, as far as the mainstream Muslims are concerned, she may have not been happy with that decision, but she doesn't really, it's not too much of a big deal. Let's take, for a moment, let's pause there. Everybody must understand that this was any land that belonged to the Prophet or came to the Prophet in fate, that means after war and so on. This was waqf. Okay, that means nobody owned that land. Nobody. Abu Bakr didn't own it. Nobody owned it. The produce of that land, a portion of that produce was indefinitely dedicated to the family of the Prophet, including Fatima and Hassan and Hussein and so on. That was indefinitely. Nobody disputes that. The Shia do not dispute that. The Sunnis do not dispute that. That the produce coming from Fadak continued to come to Fatima for her lifespan and her offspring after that. There is no debate about that. Now, the debate is on regarding the propriety and the ownership of that land. According to Sunni sources, nobody technically owns the land. The land belongs to Allah and His Messenger, and the Muslims have a duty to preserve it. It is the guardianship of the land is given to certain people who watch over it. The produce of it is given a significant portion to the family of the Prophet, and what remains and the surplus amount goes back to the treasury and can be used for other sources. Okay. So that's just to clarify. Some Shia sources, including books like, I think some commentaries, there's a Muthini or somebody with his commentary on Nahj al-Balagha, and there's Durr al-Najafiyya. These, not you Durr al-Najaf, but Durr al-Najafiyya, which is a Shia work, they also accept that Fatima was okay with this decision. They do not claim anything to the contrary. Other Shia sources claim that no, she hated Abu Bakr, and she was, like hated him with viciously, and this was land which was usurped by the people like Abu Bakr. But if we look at this objectively, Abu Bakr never took the land for himself. No Muslim at that time and for decades and the centuries after claimed that Fadak land for themselves. Nobody did. It was waqf, okay, just to clarify that. Okay, so it was not something, this was not to do with are they getting benefit from the land. Everybody accepts that they got the ghalla, the kind of produce went to the family of the Prophet. They disagree on the ownership of it, that's all. The other Shia sources are obviously very caught up about that, and they make a big deal out of it. So that's just to explain. Then the Shia had an issue, or there is a problem that kind of hit them in the face, and that was that why, when Ali became caliph, why did Ali not give Fadak to his offspring? Because he didn't. Because they claim, the Shia claim, that Ali believed that this belonged to the family of the Prophet. So why is it during his leadership he did not give it to them? Because that is a known fact that he did not give it to them either. During his rule, his 5 years or whatever it is of rule, he did not give Fadak to his children or the children of Fatima. He did not give it. So then they have kind of like, I don't know, interpretations for that. Like they say, oh, it wouldn't have been wise, or he didn't want to stir up a greater issue, or, so on and so forth. And the Shia kind of interpretations for that. The Sunnis say, well, because he believed that anyway. That's why he never did that. So, right, let's move on, people. Enough of these sectarian issues. Right, let's move on. Right. Are there any Zahiris left in this world? A Zahiri is somebody who is a literalist or a textualist. who does not believe in analogy. There possibly may be. You see, the thing is, somebody's asking that did Fatima speak to Abu Bakr? I believe there are narrations she did. I have heard these. I'll tell you who is an expert on this. Sidi Muhammad Iqbal, who's on Facebook, and he's from Birmingham Sharif, the blessed Birmingham, which I can't believe, on a tangent, I can't believe the council is allowing our city to become plagued by not bloody doing something about the bin strike. It is driving me, alhamdulillah, I mean, this place is okay, but I mean, what I see on social media is the city is going to the dogs, man. And anyway, let's get back to the point. So, Sidi Muhammad Iqbal, who's on Facebook, he is an expert on these matters of Shia-Sunni relations and the whole text. And you can resort to Muhammad Iqbal, who is a sheikh and he's a Maliki scholar, very learned, one of the most, who I think is amongst the top qualitative brand of scholars we have in the UK today. Okay, so, but he likes to keep himself low-key, so you can reach out to him if you want to discuss narrations on Shia things. But I would say, look, you have to remember, it was a difficult time. There were huge insurgencies, huge rebellions, a lot of wars going on. And there was only 6 months of a lifespan that Fatima radiallahu anha lived after the Prophet. So it's not like she lived for years and years. So it's difficult interpreting what actually happened. You have to understand that, okay? So you have to be real about things as well. Are we allowed to use watermelon juice to make wudu? Don't know what crazy kind of fantasies you've got going on there, Hamza Sharif. But hell no is the answer. Water must be pure. It must have 3 qualities, okay? It must smell, taste, and look clear, okay? Or relatively clear. Is it a must to not cut hair nails if you are sacrificing an animal? Absolutely not, Siddiqi Aqib. That is not true. You can trim nails and so on. Some scholars said it was recommended. I know the Hanbalis believe that, but the general understanding is you can trim nails, cut hair, everything, unless you are actually on Hajj, which we here are not. Okay. Is it true that in Maliki fiqh you can read Isha straight after Maghrib? I mean, not generally, unless there's a reason. If there is a reason to do so, like the twilight period in the UK, when the twilight does not, the astronomical twilight does not disappear, then yes, you can. Or if you were traveling, or if there was heavy rain, or if there was, if there was a reason why. Heavy rain, I suppose if you're praying at home doesn't make a difference, but yeah. Am I taking a Hajj group? Have you seen what I look like? Would the Saudi authorities even let me in? No. They probably would let me in, to be fair. I mean, but no, I'm not taking a Hajj group. And I don't think I'm that kind of a guy you want to go with on Hajj. I think... I don't think I'm that. You need somebody really spiritual, yaar. Ye masail tasawwuf, ye tera bayan ghalib. These issues of spirituality and the way you explain them, ghalib. Tumhe hum wali samajhte, jo nabada khar hota. Wah, wah, wah. He says, I would have considered you a man of God if it wasn't for this drinking problem that you had. But that's ghalib for us. But I mean, yeah, people like me, no, I wouldn't feel right taking people on a Hajj group. I think people need, there's plenty of great people to do that. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. Somebody just said, this guy seems high. This guy, God damn it! Who is this guy? Yaar, ye guy kaun hai, yaar? You get some people, they start communicating with you, and it's like, I don't know what they use words like, I don't know, like you're already on a level. Like, yo, what's up? What's up? I had this guy message me, yo, Spiky. I thought, okay. I mean, do I, okay, are we on that kind of a relationship? You know, like I had somebody once say to me in between, just like a message, you joker. I thought, okay. Right, okay, you joker too. I don't realize, I'm sorry, I don't realize we're so pally already, but anyway. Right, so moving on. Next question, people, next question. Can Muslims be cremated? Right, no, it's different. No, look, listen, it's different if you know somebody. I'm just saying, when you know, you just get a random message from somebody, yo, what's up? What's up? Spiky. And I thought, okay, I don't think I actually know who you are, but yeah, so anyway, can Muslims be cremated? Right. Can Muslims be cremated? Generally, the Muslim tradition is to bury somebody in the ground. As Allah says in the Quran, Minha khalaqnakum, that we have created you from this earth. That وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ, and we shall return you into this earth. وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى, and from it we shall take you forth. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, god damn it. Everything should return to dust. That's the kind of understanding, the kind of philosophical backdrop. As Mutanabbi says in his poem, إِذَا نِلْنَا مِنْكَ الْوُدَّ فَالْبَاقِي هَيِّنٌ. Allah. He says, if all we need is your love. He says, all we need is love from you. He says, إِذَا نِلْنَا مِنْكَ الْوُدَّ فَالْبَاقِي هَيِّنٌ وَكُلُّ الَّذِي فَوْقَ التُّرَابِ تُرَابُ. And everything that is upon the earth is nothing but earth. In essence, it shall all just return to dust. That's a way of looking at things. Subhanallah. In poetry, as the Prophet said, that inna min ash-shi'ri la hikmah, indeed in poetry we find wisdom. So you should really, I advise people to engage in meaningful poetry. On that note, let me take a question. Shukran. There's, you know, with poetry, I've been asked this question before and I don't think I really got to answer it. That why, if it's okay, then why has Allah condemned it in the Quran? Okay, that why does Allah say, وَالشُّعَرَاء يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ أَلَا تَرَوْنَ أَنَّهُمْ فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ يَهِيمُونَ? That do you not see that they, you know, that they are, they're kind of lost and just aimlessly wandering in these valleys. They weren't literally going in valleys, but you know, it's metaphorical. But do you not see them aimlessly wandering, these poets? وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ, and that they say that which they do not do. And Allah condemns them in Surah Al-Shu'ara as in وَالشُّعَرَاء يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. You see, you have to see how the mufassirin, or how the ulama of who have commented on the Quran, the commentators of the Quran have explained this. And if we take a look at one of the dons of this last century, who I often refer to and who is indirectly my teacher, and he had granted license and ijazah to Sheikh Sidi Bou Khubza, who I went to and got ijazah from. And so he was Ibn Ashur, one of the greatest scholars of the 20th century, who has a tafsir of the Quran, in 30 volumes, and he was a Maliki master, the grand Mufti of the Maliki and the Muslims in Tunis of his age. Now when he comments on this, he explains you have to understand what was going on. The Shu'ara, the Shu'ara, right, in the time in Mecca, most of them did not claim to be magicians. They did not claim, but some of them had this thing going on where they used to say that they are given inspiration, like that the spirits speak to them with words. The spirits and the jinn and all these things. So they would say that yukallimuhum hatif. Hatif, by the way, hatif today in Arabic is a phone, is called hatif, but hatif in Arabic actually means a voice which which you can only hear and not see the source of the voice. So they used to call that a hatif, like a sudden voice speaking. So in classical poetry or Arabic, if you read the word hatif, they're not speaking about a phone. So it was quite conveniently adopted for phones, because that's what hatif meant. You can hear the voice and not see the person. Right, so these shu'ara, some of these shu'ara would say that these hawatif or these hatif speak to them. And that's where they get their poetry from. Now, the disbelievers of Mecca made certain allegations against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Namely two key things. One, that they claimed, he was mental and things like this, and two, that he was a poet. Okay, and that maybe he was being inspired by devils and things like this. Now, so for this, today, somebody just tried to type Jawal. Jawal means a mobile, something that moves around, a mobile phone. But the word phone in Arabic, they use hatif. But anyway, so the thing is that, so Allah dispels these myths in the Quran and decimates them and says that the Prophet is not mental. He is not. And Majnoon also, the term Majnoon in essence, the way the Arabs originally used it was like, oh, that demons have possessed this person and he's become mental. So what Allah does in Surah Al-Shu'ara is He is dispelling this myth of the Shu'ara, of the poets. There were certain people in Mecca that would sit on the outskirts of Mecca. They were poets, but they would narrate stories. And they would condemn people that followed the Prophet. And they would call them losers, and they would say that the Prophet is mental, and this is true poetry. It's in reference to that Allah is saying that ash-shu'ara, this alif lam is lil ahdi dhihni. It is for what is known, which poets. It's not poets as in all poets in the world. It's the poets, the one sitting on the outskirts of Mecca, condemning, abusing the Messenger of Allah and the Muslims. يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ. It is the people who are lost and who are misled and who have evil intentions that are following them. This is what Ibn Ashur explains this verse in the Quran. That these people, these poets that sat outside of Mecca, they would tell stories and myths. Asatirul awwaleen, the legends of these previous gods and all these things that these gods would do. A bit like the Greek myths of the god Venus and the god this and that, and so all of these things, Zeus and all these kind of things. So in a similar light, the Arabs had their own myths, and Allah is saying, "Ala tara annahum fi kulli wadin yahimun." Do you not see that they wander in all these aimlessly with their tails? Annahum yaquluna ma la yaf'alun. These people are not even people of integrity. They're not people of integrity. And they are dissing the Messenger of Allah, who Allah says, look, إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. that you are somebody of great, impeccable character. So this is the comparison, and these are the shu'ara that Allah is condemning. He's not condemning poetry in general. Okay, so poetry is fine. And the Prophet appreciated poetry, and he said that poetry is good. And those hadith where the Prophet said, oh, if you were to be full of poetry, it's better that you are, a person is full of vomit than he is of poetry. That was to do with that kind of stuff. The poetry that was being used to just attack the messenger of Allah and attack this message of truth, and that was here to fight superstition. This propaganda poetry, the Prophet was saying that, I would rather be full of vomit than be full of that kind of propaganda, which is just here to hurdle people from the truth. So anyway, that's that understanding. I hope it's up. Mike Mala, people, Mikhail Mala is in the house. Our Nasheed artist legend from the Midlands, young legend who's heading off to Al-Azhar as well, I believe, to study. So we wish him the best of luck there. Right, so next question. Right, is it permissible? Is it permissible to watch sports games like football or Olympic swimmings in which players' auras are uncovered? All right, right there, who's this? Hez Jamrock, Nate. You see, there's a similar question there about somebody trying to sell a product about 6 packs and they're having to show stuff like that. You see, this is where you can't... You see, people... Okay, let's first of all go to the understanding what scholars have said. The general understanding, people will say, no, this stuff is haram, 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 haram. The general kind of, this kind of message which is coming on. So if you picked up a book from... let's say some of our most of our fiqh books, which are all classical. So if you picked up a book 1,000 years ago, they're going to say, well, obviously this is haram. Now, you see, we can look at what some scholars today, like when who's a legendary scholar, Sheikh Muhammad Walid al-Hassan ad-Dadu, who is one of the great muftis of Mauritania, Maliki, and renowned scholar worldwide, when he was asked about when you live in a society where women generally are uncovered, or not as in not totally naked, it's not a nudist, we're not living on a nudist beach, right, unless you want to take up accommodation for which you can contact right, so we're not talking about a nudist beach, but we're like, let's say in this society where women will wear short skirts or generally, short tops and things like this, do you have to always be lowering your gaze and be not looking and can you not look? And he said, where things are the norm, you can just go by the norm. So if that's how women around you generally dress, you are not required to kind of excessively, to kind of like lower your gaze and think, where they are normal. That's his fatwa of the Shaykh, which I find totally to reflect the voice of reason. And so therefore I think that's something we as Muslims here can adopt, and that makes life workable. Now, this understanding, so the same thing with stuff like football, Olympics, it's this same kind of thing, right? You have to understand, look, when we're looking at scholars in the past, you see, this is the thing, we have to understand that the world has entirely changed. Entirely, people. Entirely. We are living in an absolutely different world today. And you have to come to terms with that, because many Muslims do not seem to understand this. They don't seem to grasp this concept that we are living in a different world. And I mean a really different world. A real... I don't just mean, oh, it's... You see, during time there were developments, and they were kind of like the gradient was like this. But since the techno-scientific revolution and the industrialization of the world, these changes have spiked. We are in an absolutely different world today. Absolutely, the way we think, the way everything is different. So those scholars in their day and age reconciled for their own day and age. Because Islam came, you see, when the Prophet was asked, what is Islam? He did not say that Islam is that, you know, oh, this ruling or that ruling or this. He said Islam was the arkan, these 5 pillars. That's all it was. The other things were there to reflect phenomena that was taking place. They were rulings to engage, which varied from other prophets that went before. And these rulings would vary as time develops and the narratives change of society. People, Sheikh Ahad in the house, Ahlan wa Sahlan, Sheikh Ahad, right? That's a comrade, a fellow comrade from the days of study, a sheikh living in London. You can always reach out to him for advice, people, on Facebook. Right now, so just to clarify, look, as society would change, so would these things. Alright, Amani, ke onda, ke ubo, alright, ahlan wa sahlan, ahlan wa sahlan. Right, so the thing is, now, so would society would continue to change, so would these rulings. And that began in the time of the Sahaba. Things started to change. So you see, for example, in the time of Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu anh, there's an understanding in Islam when rulings that, you see, when you hand something to somebody, a merchant, to do work on, the merchant carries 0 responsibility. That is what the Hadith dictates. That's what the Prophet taught us. What did Sayyidina Ali say? He said, sorry, the time has changed. Corruption has spread. We will now hold these people accountable for any loss that happens to that product whilst they hold it. What did the Prophet say regarding the time of Uthman? You see, the Prophet, when speaking about things like animals roaming free, camels and so on, he had said, oh, if somebody finds a sheep or a goat or something, they can announce it and they can do this, and they can Muslims can repossess it. And then the Prophet was asked, right, the Prophet was asked, what about a camel? Can the Muslim society repossess a camel if we found a camel just wandering around? And the Prophet said, Ma laka walaha. What's wrong with you? Leave the camel alone. Ma'aha ma'uha wa siqa'uha. The camel can feed itself and it carries its water. Nobody has the right to repossess a camel. But what did Uthman radiallahu anhu do in his time? He said, we're going to change that law because the times have changed. He said, Amma al-yawm fala. فَنُصَادِرُهَا الْيَوْمِ. He said, today we will confiscate any camels that are wandering around because لأن الزمن قد تغير. The time has changed. So likewise, things continue to change. But since the industrialization era, things have changed massively. Ethics have changed. Everything has changed. It's like the iPhone 4. It changed everything. Everything has changed. Right? So we need to keep that in mind. Now I'm like, what the hell was I even talking about in the first place? Why did I... Right, so anyway, why did I begin this topic now? I'm trying to backtrack. Right, so we have to accept that rulings change. Why was I even... why was I even... speaking about this? Let me see. Right. Let me see. What was the question? I've lost it. I've lost it now. I've lost my what the initial thought was. But we need to understand that rulings do change with time. Right. I don't know what the particular ruling was that I was trying to refer to. what the initial question was. I'll have to watch back and then answer next time. But we have to embrace this understanding. So people today are like still fixated in trying to say, no, Islam came because of these rulings. No, Islam came to connect us. Oh, about Awrah and Olympics. Shukran, Hussein. I appreciate that. Right now, the reason I was saying this is so when scholars came in their time, so let's say 200-300 years after the Prophet, scholars started to say, like, it's okay to see the awrah of slave women. That's absolutely fine. Oh, but normal women, no. Because slave women, this existed in their time. So they just made a difference. Oh, that's okay. Oh, her, you can see her naked. And to the extent they say in a lot of the fiqh books, oh, if you're going to go to buy different slave women in these markets, you can fondle their breasts. They mention you can kind of grab you can grope them, touch them, you can feel them, you can check how much meat they've got on them. Now, if those markets existed in our day and age, window shopping would have been taken to new heights. This is where all the Muslim folks would just hang out. We would just be like, right, I think I'm gonna buy this one. I'm just checking. Yeah, I'm just checking. Look, I've got my credit card. I'm checking. I'm a valuable customer, goddammit. Alright, so let me just check this one. Seriously, this is in all the fiqh books. And so they say you can do all this kind of stuff. You can touch, you can feel her breasts, you can feel her buttocks, you can do this kind of stuff. You can check how much meat she's got on her. Now, you see, so it's interesting. It's interesting how they managed to draw this distinction. It's interesting how they managed to draw this distinction. How they managed to reconcile mentally with this dissonance. That on one hand, everything was all about modesty and everything. And on the other hand, all this was perfectly Islamic. So this is in all the books. So for example, if you take in whether it's in the Hanafi fiqh books, you could go through Ibn Abidin's Radd al-Muhtar, in the Maliki works, you could go through Hattab's explanation on Mukhtasar Khalil. This is all in there. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm just saying, and my point of mentioning it beyond the humor is to show it's interesting. Like for a moment, let's put aside the humor and the fantasy and also the kind of feminist talk. Let's just put that aside for a moment. But it's interesting how they managed to live with the dissonance, with the kind of contradictions going on, how they managed to just reconcile mentally and say, oh, well, this is okay. So in a similar way, today, things like what's on TV and stuff like this, we should be able to just reconcile. I'm not being funny, but we should look. And I appreciate the kind of fatwa that Sheikh, Shinqiti, Sheikh Dadu has given, who is a respectable, reputable, very traditional scholar. Now, what I'm trying to say, that is my line of understanding. That today, you see, we need to understand that religion needs to be a working thing. It needs to work for people. Why did I choose the Maliki madhab? The school of Medina chose me. Alright, people, that's what I'm talking about. School of Medina, the Maliki madhab is just too awesome. Why wouldn't I choose it? I'm all about being awesome. So, School of Medina is just too cool, man. It's for this day and age, that's all. So, I mean, we need to reconcile, yes, so when we're watching Olympics, football, these kind of things, in my understanding, are not sexual acts. So, based on the fatwa the scholar has given, I think it's fine. I don't think it's something haram. I don't think Allah's going to punish people like that. And people can disagree with me. They can disagree with me, and I respect their position. Nobody's forcing them to watch Olympics. Nobody's forcing them to watch sports. But I'm just saying that, look, the way our legacy, if you want to call it a legacy or heritage, for 1,000 years reconciled and held contradictions regarding Awrah and covering yourself, they managed to hold it. This is a tiny fraction compared to what they were reconciling. So that's all I've got to say on that. That's a can of worms that some people are like, Astaghfirullah, Toba, Toba. This Mufti is taking everybody to hell. Listen, people, those people who think like that, they have misinterpreted, they've misunderstood God. Allah is not this kind of wicked, this kind of horrific figure, maybe in their minds. But God, as we understand him, is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. If you can understand something, it is, to me, ridiculous that you should assume that God can't understand it. So anyway, somebody asked here about, this is another question moving on to this, reconciling with LGBTQIP, whatever it is. All of these letters. You know what we should have? We should start adding like Arabic letters to it. LGBTQ, Qaf, Ain, Sheen. They're like, what the hell are they? This is inclusivity. We're being inclusive, goddammit. This is Sheen is for Shadh, Ashadh. So anyway, right? But in all, I heard an answer. This is a question I want to tackle. Is it permissible to not follow mother? I'll come to that later on. Right. I heard a question this last week as I was chilling on my break. Oh yeah, people. And as a side note, I'm going to say, people, take time out for yourselves. And remember to enjoy life as well. Take a break when you can. Right. That's what's life? Hashtag what's life if not lived. Right. So live it. And ask Allah to give you. This is another side note. I'm just going off on a tangent here. Right. I put this Snapchat thing up. I saw this. Somebody sent me this message on Snapchat. And it was an Islamic quote saying, people beware. Beware. Beware, people. If your life is going smooth. That is, if things are going good. That is not because, maybe it's because Allah is depriving you of the hereafter. Duh, duh, duh. This is like, we need that kind of suspense music with duh, 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 da. So you get to the akhirah and it's like, you sucker. You thought you were just chilling in the dunya. Is that who was going to pay for this? Your dad. It's like, Puttar, go sit in that queue over there. You're going to the fire. That's where you're going. That was a bad impersonation of the Jaws tune, but at least you figured it out, Ahmed. Right, so, look, listen, people, that's not how it works, okay? It seriously doesn't work like that. Don't think of God in such evil ways. I think it's a shame that you think of Allah in such an evil way. You think, like, people have an image of Allah that he's this sadistic God that takes pleasure in making people suffer. Why would God do that? The Messenger of Allah said in a hadith, people, he said, do you see these animals, the way the mother attends to and sees to its young, that it lifts its hoof and that should it, makes sure that it shouldn't tread on it, or it kind of watches over the young, diligently sacrificing even itself. And the Sahaba said, yes, of course. He said, do you think that's merciful? And they said, hell yeah, that's merciful. And he said, this is nothing compared to the love Allah has for his creation. The Prophet said, He said that if you took, as an example, he said if you took mercy and compassion and broke it into 100 parts, 100 parts, people, and 100 here is being used as the Arabs would for like an enormously massive kind of thing. He said everything you see on this earth, including that animal doing that, and all the compassion that humans have ever expressed, is only part of one portion. And the 99 is what Allah has for His creation. People do not, لا تظنوا بالله الظنونا. Do not. It is a shame. It is a tragedy that you should think so low of Allah. That He is this kind of treacherous or this kind of evil, sadistic, vicious being that wants to see people suffering. He does not. That is the Old Testament version of God, maybe. It is not our Islamic version. And it is not. So, if you are living an awesome life, be grateful and carry on in your awesomeness, people. Carry on in that. Do not think, oh my God, something evil is going to happen. It is not going to happen. But if you start thinking like that, then something will happen. Because you've got a negative mindset. Okay? So that's important. I think it's important. We do not believe in karma. Muslims, we do not believe in karma. We do not believe in superstition. You do good, good happens. In some ways that's nice to say, but it doesn't, in the universe way, it's not how it works. Bad things, you do bad, what goes around comes around. It does, I know it's very prevalent, but it's not Islamic. Okay, so just to put that out there. Now let's get back to what I was saying. So I heard this talk anyway. Right, now the person was saying, this scholar was saying, he was an American scholar and a very kind of like a conservative minded scholar, and he was saying, well look, and I don't like using these words conservative, but I'm only using it so you understand. Right, now, yes, and right, so, and he was saying, people have asked me, should we, that the LGBTQI community is supporting Muslims, and should we reciprocate? Allah, should we reciprocate, people? And he said, well, no, categorically no. And he said, well, we shouldn't even really, we should be mindful when we take their support because they expect us to reciprocate. And, he said, we got to be careful because we can't endorse their ideas ever. This, in my understanding, is nonsense. I believe that Islam teaches us to support them where support is needed. Right? This is not, like, they have the right to practice their way of life. This is what Imam Malik taught us from the city of the Prophet Muhammad, from the city of the Messenger, the enlightened city, Al-Madinatul Munawwara. This is what Imam Malik, when he was asked about people marrying their own sisters, having sexual intercourse with their own sisters and their own mothers and daughters because it was their way of life. Should we intervene? Because look, we're in Medina. We have power. Muslims were ruling. They were at the height. This was the golden era. Harun al-Rashid and all these people. This was the golden era, people, of Islam. What does, Muslims were in great strength. What does Imam Malik say? He says no. If it's their way of life, it's their way of life. La nata'arrad lahum. He said, this is in the Mudawwana. He said, we do not intervene. This is their way of life. Respect. Let them be. This was humanism, people, before humanism became fashionable. Allah. This is in our legacy, and we have abandoned it. It is a shame. It is a shame, people, that we have abandoned our own legacy as an insecure reaction to the West. That's all it is. Now, Imam Malik's words, somebody said I'm not representing him. Let me quote you to him. He said, لا نتعرض لهم فَهُوَ دِينُهُمْ. And he said, and Rabi'ah, his teacher, he said, he taught me, right? Rabi'ah, who used to say that the practice of Medina is the Hujjah. This is where we take Islam from Medina. Imam Malik says in the Mudawwana that Rabi'ah has taught me that Inna Allah qad aqarrahum ala akbar min dhalik wa akbar min nikah al-akhawat. This is the wording. Wa nikah al-banat wa nikah al-ummahat. That Allah has allowed, condoned, much greater than having nikah means sexual intercourse as well in Arabic, sexual intercourse or marrying your sisters and mothers and daughters. وَهُوَ الْإِشْرَاكُ بِاللَّهِ. Allah has taught us to tolerate even at a conceptual level those who say that God is simply a statue and worship statues. Allah has taught us to tolerate that. فَمَا بَالُكَ. What about this then? These are simply rulings. These are rulings. Imam Malik is saying this. He says, Imam Malik, people, it's not me. If you want to shoot him, shoot him. I'm just simply a messenger. So this is why you ask me, why am I on the school of Medina? Allah. That is why, people. Right, so anyway, coming back to this. So the thing is, now this, it's great that you can understand the Arabic. Now, this is so just to say that, look, we should support people in their struggles. Because the age has changed, people. It is about human rights and Islam should be at the forefront. On this note, let's move to a following linked question. Oh, right, Harun. Okay, I'm not sure. We might be talking about different sheikhs. So, you know, if the sheikh did not mean what I understood, then that's great, alhamdulillah, and I respect that. I didn't name the sheikh, that's why, on purpose. But I am certain that many sheikhs are saying this. What I've said that sheikh was saying, even if I've mistaken a particular sheikh who I did not name, just in case I misquoted him or misrepresented him. But this saying has been found in many people, like, so for example, you know, people, Asim Al-Hakim and all these other people tweeting in English and doing all this kind of stuff, they've been saying this non-stop, and many other shuyukh have been saying this. Okay, so just to clarify, many scholars are unfortunately saying that. Right, next question, and this is tied into this question. Right, that is, people, when you see, when we look at human civilization, Muslim civilization, and we can tie this into human civilization as well. When we look at the golden age of Islam, which was the age of science for Islam, and they traditionally, and I said in my previous episode that the Muslims would call al-hikmah, which was wisdom, what we would today call science. So they would call it was an amalgamation of certain things like alchemy, physics, science, philosophy, all these things. It was basically, al-hikmah was the science or the knowledge of the Greeks that the Muslims found. This is what al-hikmah was, which today we would call science and medicine and all these things. You see, Muslims stumbled upon the knowledge of the Yunan, the ancient Greeks. And what they actually stumbled upon was khairin kathir. It was a great treasure they found themselves upon. And they couldn't believe it was mathematics and physics and the cosmos and astronomy. And Arabs already had certain things about astronomy, but they found other things, medicine, they found... no, it wasn't just kalam. Kalam is what part of the theological aspect that developed as a consequence of this. But they discovered, so for example, all of Muslims would study people like Ptolemy, and they would study people like Batlayus, and they would study Galen. Galen is, all of these scholars speak about Galen. Ibn al-Arabi and all these people, they study their mathematical works and they study all their things. But the Greeks, when the Muslims stumbled upon this, the Greeks' civilization had ended. This was like part of their legacy that the Muslims kind of stumbled upon, and philosophy. So they started translating this and embracing it. And it took the Muslim civilization to a whole new height. And they never just translated and they appropriated, they started to add to. Right, they started to add to and master these sciences and contribute to these sciences. So, why am I saying this? I want you to hold that thought. Today, the problem that we're facing, let me give you an example. If, let's say, the West today, let's take America and Europe and the civilizations we have here, for some reason no longer in existence. Let's just say, for some reason, they were civilization that all the achievements we have today were in books and in recordings, but the civilization had died 400 years ago. But we stumbled upon these works. So let's say today we stumbled upon quantum physics, evolution, genetics, medicine, astronomy, the cosmology, all these kind of things today. But the Westerners, human rights, but the Westerners didn't exist. Like, let's say they had ceased. I guarantee you we would wholeheartedly embrace it. We would drown ourselves in this knowledge. The problem is that these people are still in existence and they are not Muslim. Them not being Muslim isn't the problem, because the Greeks weren't Muslim. They believed in all these different gods. The problem is these people still exist today. So, and they seem to hold a non-Muslim stance. Like they are, they don't look up to Islam. So and then there's been a history of colonial, the colonization. So you take all this baggage, you put it together, and what Muslims are doing is they are reacting out of insecurity. So they are kind of like saying, well, why have these people succeeded and we haven't? So out of hatred and hating on their success, they are dispelling anything that comes from them. And in doing so, we are losing a great treasure of reality. So I wanted to share that because, look, this last week this week, was it this week? Or within the last few days, I was visited by a scholar. And I think the scholar was great, a very respectable person who has great characteristics and great character. And I actually am, I was very, I'm very honored that he came to visit me and take his time out and speak to me. And we got into a discussion, and it went on for a couple of hours, and it was really interesting because one of the Sheikh's biggest issues with me simply was my dress sense. It wasn't even my views. I was shocked. I couldn't believe that. I would have thought, if I was to be him, I would have an issue with my views, let's say. But he simply had an issue with my dress sense. And he was saying that, am I refusing to dress in Muslim attire because of an inferiority complex? And I said, well, and we got into a lengthy discussion, and I think it's interesting that in summary, I highlighted that, look, and I have a lot of people ask me this question, that look, nowhere in Islam have we been given a uniform. Nowhere in Islam. So you, me, nobody has the authority to lie on behalf of Allah and His Messenger. I can't start calling a Samsung phone Islamic. That would be a lie to Allah, against Allah and His Messenger. I don't have that authority. Now, Allah and His Messenger didn't say there's a uniform. So to create a uniform is an innovation in Islam, because we really, Islam is for the whole world with their cultures. Allah says He created us different. لِتَعَارَفُوا, so we get to know each other and appreciate. Now, it was amazing that I did, when he said yes, he kind of obviously had to accept that point. He said, well, that's true, but this was something 100 years ago, my ancestors and his ancestors and all of our ancestors would have worn, let's say, a shalwar kameez. And there seems to be this obsession with shalwar kameez, which I have no problem with, by the way, but under culture, not under religion. That's my issue. Putting it under religion is a problem. Now, I said to him, look, that is true, but we do not live 100 years ago, and we live today. And he said, and there was a question, oh, so you want to be British? Because and I said, look, let's get something clear. I am British. There's not I want to be, I am, just as many people here are. And so was the Sheikh, but not by birth, I understand, and I said there's a difference with people who are born and raised in this country, that obviously this is everything we know. This is our culture. Now, there's nothing wrong in having Asian culture, Pakistani culture, Indian culture, Arab culture. That's great and beautiful, but to shove clothes in under the banner of religion is as ridiculous as me saying eating biryani is Islamic. That's ridiculous. How can eating biryani be Islamic? It's the same kind of thing. Now, I did ask the Sheikh then, and this is a point. I said, well, why don't you encourage people to ride donkeys? Because, let's be honest, your ancestors, and I'm sure my ancestors 100 years ago rode on donkeys. So, why don't we keep a donkey? And he said, yeah, but that's ridiculous. I said, why is that ridiculous? And he said, yeah, because the time has changed. I said, but why can't we keep our heritage? And he said, yeah, but if you're a farmer, and I said, look, no. First of all, your ancestors were farmers, my ancestors were farmers. Why shouldn't we all be farmers today, out of honouring our Muslim heritage? Secondly, why shouldn't we all keep a donkey? And you could keep a car for long distances and keep a donkey for short distances. And you could still be a doctor, but you could just, for a short distance, ride on your donkey. And this could be your Muslim identity, because 100 years ago. But you see, I said, you see the absurdity in this. But you don't see the absurdity in saying 100 years ago, your ancestors wore clothes like that. I was like, well, 100 years ago, they rode donkeys. Well, why don't you ride on a donkey? And so this is important to see that, look, people, we need to live in the present. Let's take another question, people. Biryani is sunnah? Hell yeah. I absolutely love biryani. I love chapatis, but I love rice actually more than chapatis, although that's an absolute irrelevant point. But anyway, before I start getting hungry, let's take another question. Agle prashan ki taraf chalte hain. Right, so that's bringing in some Indian heritage of ours, our ancestors. Parampara ki taraf chalte hain. Let's go to right, next question. Is the hadith praising the person to conquer Constantinople authentic? I believe it is. I believe there is a hadith where the Prophet said that, glad tidings to the person who will liberate Constantinople, which is Constantinople. Speaking Hindi is non-Islamic. Are kahe ko? This is part of our Hindustani heritage as well. We should embrace Hindi as well. Hindi, Urdu, everything. Right, so there's a female Hindi Urdu poetess by the name of Haya, Lata Haya. She's very good actually, and merges the two, fuses the two together, Hindi and Urdu. Anyway, let's... So the hadith on conquering Constantinople is authentic, as far as I'm aware. It mentions here that how could the Prophet praise somebody who began the policy of fratricide in the Ottoman kingdom. I wonder if the Prophet would really praise such a person. Okay, now, you see, I just want to say that when the Prophet praised a particular aspect, it doesn't mean that every aspect about that human has to be awesome. It does not mean that. So, for example, if somebody did something noble, it doesn't mean, you know, throughout their life they never did anything bad either. But, so just to say that what the Prophet was praising was the liberation of Constantinople. Right, so because Constantinople was like the kind of gateway to the eastern, what was the eastern kind of Christian empire, which was preventing many people from the truth. And Islam really came to liberate that. So that's what it was praising. Jewelry for men in Islam, I've answered that many times before. Yes, absolutely, it's fine as long as it's not gold, and gold has some difference of opinion. Right, but okay, now, and qaza, I've answered that so many times. Short back and sides and things like that are absolutely fine in Islam. Qaza was speaking about imitating monks. Okay, anyway, coming back to this question. And I don't think Muhammad II, Muhammad al-Thani, who is known as Mehmed al-Fatih, or Abu al-Fatuh, or Abu al-Khayrat, or Abu al-Khayr, I don't think he introduced the concept of, or he introduced fratricide into the Ottoman empire. After him, I believe one or two rulers after him was Salim al-Awwal, Salim the First, who took the laqab of Hakimul Haramain and Khadimul Haramain. So today, or not today, I know in Saudi Arabia, King Fahad, and he took that kind of laqab of Khadimul Haramain. But the person who first had this was Salim al-Awwal. Okay, the first, he was the first person to take the title Caliph as well, amongst the Ottomans. So before him, for a good while, over 100 years, the Ottomans were just ruling with the title Sultan. So even Muhammad al-Fatih, when he conquers Constantinople, he didn't use the word Caliph. Now, although he did adopt the title Caesar, he adopted the title Caesar of Rome. But and most of the Ottoman rulers adopted the title Caesar because of conquering Constantinople, but they didn't use. They used to usually refer to themselves as sultans. But Salim al-Awwal was the first person who adopts. He's called by one of the. He's actually one of the imams, or somebody calls him as Hakim al-Haramain and Khadim al-Haramain. So he likes it and he takes the title, and then he thinks, why don't I call myself Khalifa as well? So he starts calling himself Khalifa. Now, it's with him, I believe, who is the father, by the way, of Suleiman, who is known as Suleiman the Magnificent, or Suleiman al-Qanuni in Islamic history. That's his son, that's Salim's son. Right, now, I believe, was Salim, when he got in, like kind of mass murdered his brothers and everything, and really put this fratricide thing, the Khadim al-Haramain. He goes, Acha, zara ye khidmat bhi dekh lijiye. He goes, let me show you some of my service for the Haramain. And he begins by slaughtering his brothers. So I know he perpetrated mass fratricide and murdered and butchered, and but anyway, that's just the history. And this is why it's ridiculous when and his son Suleiman al-Qanuni, by the way, substituted, who was Hanafi, who today the Hanafis don't take from, god damn it, right? But he substituted the hudud, the punishments of stoning and cutting the hand and things like that, with financial penalties in his time. That was Solomon, who was known as Suleiman al-Qanuni, because he came up with, and never came up with, but he administered and made sure, set about this project, about codifying the legal system within the Ottomans, and he was really known for, he was one of the, you know, the great rulers of the Ottomans, but in his time he substituted that. He was known as Qanuni because of Qanun, because of law, and in English I believe it's Solomon the Magnificent, with all the stories about his harems. Over here in the West, these kings were like, God damn, those sultans are living it. They were like struggling to divorce one wife. They were like, how on earth King Henry VIII has to go against his entire religion to come up with the concept of divorce. Think about that. You have to make your own religion, the Anglican Church, just to get a divorce. And when he's looking at the East, like these kind of sultans, and they've got their harems full of, they're just living their lives. But anyway, coming back to this. So, I think, look, this point of fratricide and killing your brothers and killing this and that, and like a lot of the, also the Mughal kings, the Mughal dynasts in India did the same thing, even the religious ones. Like Alamgir and Aurangzeb or Alamgir, he did the same thing as well, had his brother killed and stuff like this, and had his father imprisoned, Shah Jahan. And many of the Ottomans killed their brothers and stuff. This is why it's so dumb, you know, when these people like these neo-Khawarij kind of sects like Hizb ut-Tahrir and other politicized Islamic groups, which are extremist organizations in essence. They carry extremist views about trying to take over Muslim countries and do military coup d'etats and kill people and stuff like this. You see, the vision they give is ridiculous. Like, they give this vision of Islam with this perfect khulafa and leadership, and the leadership was full of this kind of stuff. These people who call themselves caliphs, I'll be honest with you, it was not Islamic in any way. They were just kings, and they weren't Islam. It didn't bother them in any way. They were like, I'll give you an example. They were like, you take any Muslim prime minister today, except they were much more ruthless because they could get away with things. So it's like saying Nawaz Sharif today. Nawaz Sharif, to the power of 10, would have been like a regular caliph back in the past, like in the general, like these Ottomans and so on. They were just as corrupt as anybody today, except they had absolute reign. Like, so today Nawaz Sharif has been dismissed because there's a judicial system and there's worldwide pressure and there's global kind of diplomacy and there's global powers and pressure and stuff like this. In the past, in your kingdom, you did whatever the hell you want. You just kill whoever. Like, so in the past, anybody who raised these Panama issues, they would have just slaughtered him and his family. And probably, you know, killed them, raped their women, and just, these things were standard. They're not like, you know, it's shocking for us today because we live in a post-industrialization world where things have changed so much. But in the past, these things were very normal, and they were regularly, as in happening right throughout the Muslim world as well. Being Muslim didn't mean anything different. So this is why, you see, some sects like the Shia, I was saying, struggled with, because they needed leadership to be pure. So this is why they came up with their own concept of leadership, of imamah, because the caliph leadership thing just didn't add up. Because they weren't religious in any, like they didn't in fact have anything to do with religion apart from just being Muslim. So yeah, so I think, but if the Prophet prophesied a good action at the hands of somebody, it didn't mean that the Prophet ordained anything and everything that person was to do throughout their lives. So just to clarify that. Right, next question. Whoa, people. Whoa, I'm feeling kind of drained. Is it all this talk about biryanis that's got me hungry now? Abdul Majid, Maj is in the house, people. Maj is in the house. All right. Our HT expert. I'm going to send all the trolls. You can get trolls sending for you now. Anyway, Isn't it an oxymoron to say that there is such a source of law as ijma when there is no ijma on the legal definition of ijma? Zafar Tarin. That is true. There is no... Osama Sayyid. Alright. That's what we're talking about. That's it, people. Alright. All the way. Right. Now, ijma, consensus, is within the books of legal theory. You have this thing of... you're right. I didn't have Red Bull today. I just had my usual cocktail. Right. Right. The people speak about ijma. Ijma was, in essence, it was like a wild card that was used often by people to just intimidate and apply pressure and stuff like this. There is no consensus on what consensus even means. So how could it, really be, such a... That's absolutely true. But what is interesting is how Muslims didn't actually... A lot of Muslims kind of just went with it. And maybe some people questioned it. The odd person questioned it. But everybody just kind of went with it because it was tribalistic. You see, it was part of their... Like, they used their ijma to just force it on other people. But this is why today it's important that, this... In a way, it's one of the benefits of the tragedies. Like in Arabic, there's a saying that, like, رُبَّ ضَارَةٍ نَافِعَةٍ, that sometimes, like I suppose, out of a tragedy, you can find a blessing. Now, the tragedy, the tragic, overwhelming, abysmal, like absolutely horrific tragedy of things like colonization that took place. But the disconnect as a byproduct it caused to Islam and the Muslim history allowed now Muslims to once again see things afresh because there was a disconnect. And so, yeah, it's true. And even ijma in the past was questioned by people like Imam Shafi'i. Was questioned by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal on saying whoever claims ijma is a liar. Man idda'a al-ijma fahuwa kadhib. And Ibn Hazm ripped the whole thing to shreds. But in general, people kind of went with it, even though they had no idea, on no common ground on what they were talking about. But they just used it whenever they wanted to shove something in somebody's face. Oh, you can't question, there's ijma. You think, how on earth was there ijma? But it was just one of those things. Anyway, moving on. And I've given a lengthier explanation on how I do believe there was something as ijma. At the time of the Sahaba, at the time of the companions, and what that was, I've given a lengthy discussion on it in my previous. So if you search ijma, and my name should come up. Inshallah, soon my website should be up and running, and you should be able to find these things with much more ease. So I do give a definition on what the true understanding of ijma was and how it kind of got hijacked as the kind of age went by and was turned into this just intimidation, a card of intimidation. Right, okay, next question, people. Right, okay, there's a viral clip. I think some of you know what I'm going to talk about now. There's a viral clip that's gone around on social media. You know what I'm talking about. Natty. Basically, there's a girl who's praying her salah poolside. And she's in her bikini and her swimwear, right? So, and she's praying her salah. And you've all seen this clip, don't lie. So people are ripping her to shreds on social media. And I've been tagged in this on several occasions. And people have asked me, what do I think about this? Right. Well, first of all, I think people have no right to rip into her like that. It's nobody's business. Okay, like, look, you can have your opinion, but I don't think it's right to kind of destroy people, like troll them. Like you have no right to just generally be harsh, like an evil towards people. I get your right to express your opinion. I get your right to say, look, people, look, like if somebody said, excuse me, you know, I don't know what her name was. I don't know if people knew her name. Or, excuse me, sister. I don't like using the word sister. I do not call girls normally sister. Okay, I don't buy into all this kind of what I call nonsense, romanticized kind of version of Islam, which has only emerged in the last century or so. But there's nothing wrong with people who want to use that. You know, they want to call everybody their brother and everybody their sister. Generally, Muslims in the past didn't do that kind of stuff. But okay, so you never see, you know, like in the past, in the Arabic books, they say, hey, brother, sister, all this. This is a new synthetic kind of Islam that we've developed in the West. But anyway, fine. People could have said, hey, sister, you know, it's admirable that you have remembered, you know, taken out time to worship. But I think you should, you know, generally, one ought to cover when praying salah and things like this. Okay. Yeah, we are all brothers and sisters in humanity. I know. I get the whole evolution thing, my friend. And we are all the sons and daughters of Adam. I get that. But I'm just saying I don't generally like this kind of... I've got no problem with you guys doing it, but I'm just saying I don't buy into this whole... everybody, this artificial synthetic Islam of everybody is your brother and sister, and just get real and just call them who they are. You know, you don't need to over hey brother, hey sister, right? Anyway, so coming back to this point, so somebody could have said to her, look, listen, this is the ruling, but they don't have a right to tear into her. That's what I'm saying, right? To start off with, you do not have a right to be nasty to somebody just because, look, at the end of the day, she was just remembering God. That's what she was doing. Okay, first of all, let me drop the bombshell, right? Did you know, according to the Maliki madhab, and according to people like Qadi Ismail, who is a don in Islam, and a don in the Maliki madhab, that salah is absolutely valid? Did you know that? Qadi Ismail, I've answered this before, has said that covering the Awrah has nothing to do with salah. He has made that point absolutely clear early on. He was one of the major scholars amongst like the teachers of people like Bukhari. He's a legend in Islam, Qadi Ismail. And many of the Malikiyah of Baghdad and Iraq followed him on this understanding. He said that covering yourself was a separate obligation in Islam. It was a fardun Islami and was nothing to do with shara'it salah, with the conditions of salah. So this is why in the Maliki madhab you will get these rulings that to cover yourself, what are the different opinions within Islam, within the Maliki madhab, that it is an obligation, that it is an obligation with capacity, that it is a sunnah, that it is only a recommendation to cover yourself in salah. But it is a separate obligation in Islam. So the question is, if I was praying, if somebody prayed naked in a room where nobody could see them, is their salah valid? According to the Malikiyah of Baghdad and Iraq, which was a valid sub-school of the Malikiyah and Qadi Ismail, that their salah is valid. And they were legends in Islam. Qadi Ismail, he was, you know, in his time, he was made the absolute judge of Baghdad and Basra. I mean, he was an absolute legend in his time. So this understanding that, just to show this is within the school of Medina, within Sunni Islam, it is a valid understanding within Islam, that covering yourself is a separate obligation which is independent and immaterial to salah. That said, so I want you to understand that. And I've said before that, look, based on this understanding, I've answered this before previously, that look, based on that understanding, if women or if people are praying and something was to become uncovered, look, it's fine anyway, the salah, you've got this difference of opinion. Okay. Now, so let's put that ruling there. Now here, the majority of the people, the other madhabs, And the rest of the Malikiyah said that no, I mean there was a difference. Some said it was a fard, some said it was a fard with capacity and remembrance, some said it was a sunnah, and then some said it was mustahab, just a recommendation and not really part of the salah at all in any key integral way. But the rest of the Malikiyah did say it was an obligation, and the rest of the madhahib said, okay, a person needs to cover in salah. It was a condition of salah. Remember, now, first of all, there's a difference of opinion in this mas'ala with this woman praying poolside in her bikini and swimwear. It's not something I would recommend people to do. I would not tell them to do that. But if they did it, right, don't be nasty towards them. You have no right to be cruel to people. Nobody gave you the right to do that. So what you have the right to do is you can look, you can extend your opinion. You can say, look, listen, because I actually think it's amazing. Wallahi, I actually saw the fact that, wow, somebody who, and I'm being stereotypical, just as people will be stereotypical of me, I'm being stereotypical, seeing somebody in swimwear like that, you wouldn't think that they're necessarily somebody so, and that's wrong of me to judge like that, but I'm just being honest, that you wouldn't think that, oh, that maybe they have a deep connection with Islam. But, wow, she does. You know, the fact that she, at poolside, put herself to praying and remembering Allah is in itself an amazing thing that she could have just said, forget it. Who gives a damn? Okay, but she may have done it in a way that according to many, not according to all, according to many, invalidated the prayer. So, fine, you know, there's still a difference of opinion, but you could respectfully, nicely extend a kind word. You know, you will get very far with kind words. To tear into her, she'll probably just stop praying, thinking, look, and she never recorded herself, somebody recorded her. Anyway, so that was my point. I personally do feel that Qadi Ismail and the Malikiyah, the school of Medina, have a strong point on what they've said, that covering yourself in salah is a separate obligation to that. That is my general understanding that I do go with. So I would feel that, look, based on what the Maliki have said, her salah would have been valid. But, you know, it was generally an obligation for her to cover, which she didn't do. And for that, somebody could say, you know, the sin and things like that. But the salah would have been fine. Okay, based on that understanding. How would have I reacted? I would not have, if I was in that situation and somebody prayed, it depends. Look, if I wouldn't go over and command, you know, the Taliban are here, Taliban ragle. It's not, none of my business. Yes, if I was to be honest with you, I was actually, when I saw it, I was just in awe that, wow, somebody that remembered their salah. You know, like I saw that side, like, wow, like I wouldn't have expected somebody to be chilling like that and then remember their salah. And it would have probably put me to shame, because I would have probably been delaying mine. But I'm just saying, so, and yeah, if I got into a conversation with a girl that did that, I would have probably mentioned that, look, I think, you know, because I do believe the salah, based on what the Malikiyah said, was valid, but generally it's because people are recording you or whatever, that you should, you know, to avoid controversy. And maybe it's better that if you get a chance, just wrap up in a gown and then pray. But look, have some decency and stop playing God. Let's be honest, right? All right, let's take another question, people. Let's take another question. Right. Somebody asked, how was my meeting with Sheikh Bukhubza? Sheikh Bukhubza is an amazing scholar who's still alive today in Tatwan, and he granted me his asanid, his chains of transmission, through his teachers, which is through Sheikh Ahmed al-Ghumari, is through the legend who I absolutely love, Sheikh Ibn Ashur, who he took ijaza and license from Tunis, the Maliki Don, and also through people like Abdul Hayy al-Kattani, who has an abundant, countless books of chains, and I purchased his 3-volume collections of chains. This is, I suppose it's more a collector's item thing, really. If you're into it, it means something for you. If you're not, I guess it means nothing. It doesn't mean, you know, Sheikh Bukhubza, is an amazing, like, I absolutely adore his commitment to studying and his knowledge, and the fact that, you know, his association with these teachers and his love and respect for people like Ibn Ashur. It does not mean that I necessarily have to agree with all his views in life. We need to get over that kind of concept. You know, people sometimes feel that, oh, your sheikh, oh, this guy, oh my God, let me find something he says which you disagree with. Ha, he's your sheikh, I got you, gotcha, you know, got him. That's not how this works, man. It's like, grow up, for God's sake. You know? It doesn't work like that. So let's move on to the next. Another question, people. Another question. Right, whoa, my head is spinning. All right, let's see, people. Sorry, I had the questions open and it just closed on me. Right, was Sadl always the dominant opinion within the madhab? Sadl is like praying with your arms at the side, and the Malikiya do that. I don't know about dominant. It's always been a very popular, outstanding position within the Maliki school, and I've answered this before, and you can find it on YouTube, inshallah, and check it out. They have given more detail. Can you explain the Barelvi Deobandi dispute that's plagued the subcontinent? Right, were senior Deobandi ulama in support of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab? Is the disputing purely on beliefs, or does politics play a major role? Right, you see, my advice, Suleiman Ahmed, is that, look, we in the UK, as I advise people, I do inshallah write my book someday, and I'd love to write memoirs of a mufti, but then people would just hate me if I was to be absolutely true. Right, so, the duplicity we have to keep. The hypocrisy, such is the hypocrisy of life. Right, so, right, you know, this Deobandi, Barelvi split, this is Indo-Pak baggage. Leave it over there. Respect them both, love them both, but you take what's good, leave what's bad. I'm not bound. I have teachers who are Deobandi, I have teachers who are Barelvi, I have teachers who are Salafi, teachers who are whatever. Like, take the good from whoever you want. It's a debate in Indo-Pak which, you know, began over, you know, these kind of reforms that were made by certain people at the time, and then it led to certain petty, which I think are petty debates. Issues which really are not even a part of Aqidah. Like, how much knowledge did the Prophet actually have? I mean, what kind of an absurd question is that even? Like how much knowledge did the Prophet have? Like what do you want me to measure it? Like, how the hell do I know? You know, like, grow up, for God's sake. And why is this even important? You know, is the Prophet a human, or was he superhuman, as in made out of light? I mean, what an absurd question. Of course the Prophet was human, but he was the best of humans to us as Muslims. But he was a human. I mean, it would be silly if he wasn't a human. We wouldn't have no, you know, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. We wouldn't have an uswa, because he'd just be an angel. Anyway, they say, oh, did the Prophet, I don't know, these kind of, can the Prophet be everywhere? Is the Prophet over here right now? I mean, what? Now you see why I'm saying we need to leave this baggage alone. What kind of a question is that? Is the Prophet here? What do you mean, is he here? What kind of... Like, listen, people, do not allow Islam to become mythology. I tell you, wallahi, if you allow this deen to escape the voice of reason, and it will turn into mythology. And I tell you, as mark my words, it will dissipate and disappear. It will melt in the hands of the coming generations. They will not be able to sustain it in this part of the world, because the voice of reason is way too powerful. Why do you not believe in the mythology of Zeus and the Hindu mythology? Because it's dumb. If you allow Islam to become something dumb, the coming generation, okay, you might cling on to it. But the coming generations, I tell you, when they hear the voice of reason, it will pierce right through it. You see, we're at an interesting crossroad, right? And I want to present this to all of you as well. We're at an interesting crossroad, people. Do we present certain truths as Muslims, which are truths, but they may end up shaking the faith of people? Or do we allow their faith to be sustained the way it is, but it's built on superstitions and mythologies and non-truths? Like, what do we do? Now, I say that an insecure faith, like people say to me, yeah, what you're saying is right. Like sometimes I teach things and people will say, that's right, but if you taught people this, then it might question everything they've known about Islam. And therefore they might lose Iman. And I get what they're saying, and I believe their concern to be sincere. But do we allow Islam to be just passed on as mythology and nonsense or non-truths, just so these people can hold on to it? Or do we get to the foundations and allow Islam to be built on the foundations of truth, but it will result in it shaking in the minds of certain people? Now, I believe that an insecure faith built on truth is much greater and valuable in the eyes of Allah than a secure faith built on lies. That, to me, I refuse to believe on, like, have a faith built on lies, no matter how secure it is. So that is my understanding. Now, why am I saying this? Because look, these kind of things, these kind of mythologies that we get, these kind of beliefs on magic, and I saw this YouTube clip about this guy with doing all these jinn things, and all these people believing in these demonic possessions and folklore and mythology and superstition and evil eyes, and it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. We really need to return to the voice of reason. You see, what makes human beings unique? You see, look, people, let me tell you something. I came across this kind of example. I'll share it with you. If there was a human on an island, let's say you had a human on an island and you had a chimp, a monkey, a chimpanzee on an island, and you had to place your bet on survival. You would place your bet, I would place my bet on survival on the monkey. The chimpanzee can out-survive a human being if there was one human being on an island and there was a chimp on an island. You see, our strength, you see, this whole scenario would change if there were 1,000 humans and 1,000 chimpanzees. The 1,000 humans would clearly, without a shadow of a doubt, like, outperform 1,000 or even 5,000 chimpanzees or 10,000 chimpanzees. Because human beings, we draw our incredible strengths as a collective. Because what we can do is we can create imaginative realities. That's really important for us to understand. And using these imaginative realities, we can trust each other. Now, I say imaginative because, and people might get offended, but what I mean by that is they don't have an object, they don't have a reality in front of us. But we need to embrace that because it's the truth. So many of the things, one of the great, look at all the things that are so integral to our lives today are only an imaginative reality. Like, obviously religion would fall under that. But things like currency, money is only an imaginative reality. The fact that I am British or we live in Britain is an imaginative reality. The fact, even rights, properties, not the actual thing, but the fact that it's a property is an imaginative reality. Rights over people, human rights, everything, ethics, all of these things are only imaginative realities. Laws of physics, all of our understanding of them. Quantum physics, our understanding of them is an imaginative reality. But it's testable. But what I'm trying to say is, look, this is what makes us unique. But we need to, along the way, question these realities that are presented to us. Look, like this chimpanzee, this monkey. If you ask this monkey to give you a banana, let's say this monkey had a banana, and I asked this monkey to give me his banana, and in return of him giving me his banana, he can have infinite bananas once he's dead. The monkey would never give you his banana. But the human will. See, this is the power that lies in these imaginative realities that we've created. That, you see, it's true though. You could never get a lion or an animal to give up anything it has for a promise of infinite, let's say, replacements once they're dead. They would never give it up. But humans, you can. And in that lies our power, but also our responsibility. Like, we need to be able to question and not be exploited as well. Because look, these imaginative realities and the abilities to work as a cohort and a community are amazing. But at the same time, it's like somebody said, they said, but, monkeys don't reach the moon. Monkeys don't, cure cancer. Monkeys don't create cars or run the world or create aeroplanes. But at the same time, monkeys don't create concentration camps. Monkeys don't conduct genocide. Monkeys don't, subject other monkeys to horrific forms of torture. Monkeys don't, like animals don't do that either. So the important thing in understanding this is that, look, narratives are great. Narratives are, they are what make us great. And within Islam, we have many narratives being all the time presented to us. But look, make no mistake, wallahi, so much of what we have, it's all part of our heritage, and I'm part of this, but it has, through the centuries and decades and centuries, it's gone through millions of minds and been reinterpreted all the way. The Prophet, for example, when he was asked about Islam and Iman, when the Prophet was asked what is faith, he said faith is believing in Allah, His messenger, His book, that there will be an afterlife and this and that. That's it. Today, what is faith? You will get books and books saying faith is this creed. So, like, if you don't, should you question one of these, you are no longer part of this faith. Today, we will have concepts, opinions. Like, let's not be naive. Much of what we have, it is an amazing legacy. We love it. But it has gone through a huge process of institutionalization. A huge process. So, we need to have the faculties, the cognitive faculties, to question things, to reason with things, to look at things and say, I don't know. We need to be in touch with the maqasid of Islam, the kind of objectives of Islam, because times are changing. Rulings will need to reflect their times. So we need to do that. So I mean, this is an important message, right? That we need to kind of really have the right. And when people tell you you can't question, that is a very dangerous kind of thing. Anybody who's telling you that you do not have the right to question, that is unacceptable. To me, that is a disservice to Islam. And people say, yeah, but if you teach people to question, they will question their faith. Let them, goddammit. Let them question their faith if that's what it leads to. But do not let them build a faith upon the foundations of non-truths. Because when they convey, it will crumble. So that's, I think it's important. I think it's important. Sometimes, sometimes I get emotional, yeah. I'm an emotional guy. I'm in touch with my inner softer side as well. Right, so this is what I'm saying. Like, we need to really focus on and this kind of folklore and mythologies from Indo-Pak, and leave them behind, man. Like, what's nice about them, take it. I admire and love the way the Barelvi have this whole love for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think that's amazing, and we should take that from them. The way they have respect and love for the Prophet. I think they overdo it when it comes to other people, on some people. But I think to do with the Prophet, I think we should embrace that from them. And I love the way the Deobandis have this devotion and commitment to academia, to academic, and to the sciences, and I love that. No, not the killing, not the violence. The Prophet never taught that. The Prophet never taught the violent part. That's but the love that they have. If you're going to look at a Barelvi from Pakistan, look at somebody who I highly admire. He's passed away now, Pir Karam Shah Saab, who is an amazing scholar. Something he says, I would say, take it ala ra'si wal ayn. He's not somebody that would encourage violence ever. Now, somebody like that, I would take his word. Generally, eyes closed, I would trust him. He was a man who was a voice of reason. And the Deobandis, the way they are committed to learning and trying to expand in their commitment to academia, we should take that from them. Right, to the question. So I think take what's good, but don't take the folklore and the ritual, that kind of stuff. Leave that all where it is. And the Wahhabis, you see, what we can take from the Wahhabis, I think, the Salafis, Wahhabiyah, is their courage to question things. I like the way they have a courage, although I think they, sometimes they don't question everything. They're not being objective. They don't question their own things or their own scholars. They don't question Ibn Taymiyyah. He could say anything. He's infallible. But that general kind of thing that they refuse to take this kind of things just because they are so, I think that's awesome. And the fact that they have a kind of objectivity towards rulings when it comes to hadith, some objectivity, I like that, I admire that. And the way they've refused to accept several, not all, but several superstitious practices, I like that. So, but then, they do buy into this whole demonic possession stuff and everything like that. But they have refused to accept so many other kind of cultural practices as Islam. I admire, so we can take that from them. Look, take the good from anybody. Yeah, I don't know, from me, you probably see me and think, what the hell is this freak doing on here? If not anything, just take my call to the voice of reason, even if you don't see reason in what I say. But take my call to the voice of reason and to just be consistent in Islam. That's what I would say. Right, so I'll tell you what, we're going to have to wrap this up. Should we have a rapid fire response to any questions? There was a question there. Is watching movies haram? Like I answered before, I do not believe watching movies is haram. I've given a more detailed response before on watching Olympics and things like this. It's the same thing. And this is the medium of the age. Just as the Arabs... Look, everybody today does things like watches movies, watches series, does this, does that. Now, in the past, in the Prophet's time, everybody was into the poetry. And if you were into that, you engaged with them. If today you're not into anything, then you have nothing in common with people. That's like, you know, like, what do you engage with people on? Like, okay, I'm not into sports, so I don't, but movies, TV series. Now I'm probably going to get some, I'm going to have like a, that's going to probably backfire on me, but what the hell, look, let's just be honest. Everybody watches movies. Everybody watches these things. Why should we be duplicitous? Like everybody does it behind, and then they just come up front and say, "Oh, but this is haram." But why? Like why have this double standards? Watch whatever you're gonna watch, man. You don't need to get everything rubber stamped in Islam by God. You know, we have this syndrome that we need everything kind of like, oh, I'm about to check a text message. Can God stamp it for me? Oh, I'm about to go. Oh, and I'm watching this. Can God stamp it for me? Oh, and I'm listening to this. Can God stamp it for me? I think you've misunderstood how this thing works. God doesn't work for you. It's the other way around. Okay, so let's... people, the drink has come to an end. Allah, look at that. The glass is empty. Or is it just prepared for another refill? Is that what it is? You know, Ghalib said, he said that हाथों को जुम्बिश नहीं, हाथ को जुम्बिश नहीं, आंखों में तो दम है. He said, even if my hands have become so weak that I can't reach the glass anymore, at least that my eyes still have strength to look. Rehne do abhi sagar o mina mere aage. That leave the drink and wine in front of me. At least let me look at it if I can't pick it up. Legends, legends. Right, people. I'm going to leave you to it. Inshallah, it's been awesome. Right, if you are on Facebook, like my other page, my public page, people. Like it, goddammit. Ab kya karoon, yaar? Do I have to buy those likes? Can't you just like it, goddammit? You know, when people look at people like Dawa Man and he's got like 200, 300,000 likes. And then I look at me and I think, yaar, क्या कमाल किया है मैंने यार. I can't even guess. So like my page, right, share it. If you're on Twitter, add me. I'm just being honest with you. If you're on Snapchat, you can add me, Malm 2014 2014, Malm MALM 2014. You can fire me your questions, shoot them up there. I do respond on Snapchat as well. So that's all good, inshallah. Whatever you do, people, take very good care of yourselves. It's as always an absolute pleasure. And always with a dua. Look at this. Subhanallah wa ta'ala amma yasifun. Allah is above what they ascribe to him as in descriptions. وَأَفْضَلُ الصَّلَاةِ وَالسَّلَامِ عَلَى الْقَائِلِ الْمَمْنُونَ. And the best of blessings and salutations be upon the blessed one who said, the messenger of Allah who said, Al-Madinatu khayrul lahum in kanu ya'lamun. That indeed Medina is better for them, but if only they knew. Alright people, with that, take very good care of yourselves. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.